Hello, 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 and welcome to the show. It's Wrestling with Team, the only audio experience on the web today, the trusted choice for interviewing all your favorite wrestlers every Tuesday and Wednesday, and previewing and reviewing the latest shows from WWE, AEW, New Japan, and everything in between every Saturday, with a special tonight, today, on YouTube and Castbox, sponsored by Rogue Energy and Player One Coffee. I am, of course, your host, that guy, James J., alongside the leader of Squad Squad, Kaliko Yachts.
Leaders always in effect. Expert backup dancer for the one Becca.
And the American Scooter Dust.
Big thank you to TK for these lovely hookers and cocaine you sent over.
And it's a great day for wrestling, because we are wrestling with the top 10 talkers of all time. This is purely biased list. We're all going to give you our top 10 talkers in our opinion, our favorites. Um, Trying something new, trying something different, trying to have a little bit of fun, giving you new, interesting content for your Monday. Um, so I will start us off with my number 10. And it's not necessarily his promo skills per se, but one promo in general that just resonated with me, and that is Randy Orton. Uh, well, yes, he is a good talker. The promo he cut on Beth Phoenix after attacking Edge the week prior, telling her that he loves Edge more than she does, and that's why he did what he did. You can't get better quality promo time segment than that. And it really made the rivalry between Edge and Randy Orton elevated to a greater height because of it. And for that, mainly that reason, that's why he's my number 10. Scooter?
Then COVID, then COVID happened. Oh man.
Yeah.
Number 10 for me. I'm gonna take us back. For me is Jake the Snake Roberts.
Hmm. Okay.
Uh, back in the day, he had a way of getting in to the minds of his opponents when he said something, and when he said something, you listened. Uh, I mean, yes, he fell off in years, and that's why he's 10 and not any higher on my list. But I think his mic skills in tape promos uh, have to be acknowledged. So, number 10, Jacob Fink Roberts.
Kaliko?
Damn, my number 10 might shock people. The Miz.
Hmm. Okay.
Hmm.
Because
Okay. Yeah.
Miz has this thing where, like, even though you know he's losing, when he speaks, you actually listen sometimes. And I think his best promo was actually on Talking Smack, if you will, in which he just ripped Daniel Bryan a new one. And I think that shifted for me when I saw that, because it just showed you like how serious he was about not only wrestling in general or being in the WWE, but being in wrestling in general. Especially, when you consider everybody says his move sets is whatever the case may be, but you just saw his heart in that one promo, and I think that just put him to a whole new level and he could talk anybody up. Now, whether they can catapult from that's a different story. But there's a reason he's like the gatekeeper to whether these people can make it or not.
Okay. Well, that brings us to my number 9, The American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, baby.
He's that low?
Yeah, for me anyway.
The
But
I forgot you are 12. Jesus Christ, man.
when you first listen to Dusty Rhodes's promos at that, uh, in younger years, it's kind of just cool. Yeah, I've wined and dined with kings and queens. But then you get older and you listen to those promos again, and they resonate honestly, still to this day, and they're just as relevant today as they were when he shot those promos back in the day. And I mean, if you could say something that stands the test of time, that's still relevant in 2024, you're doing something right. And that makes you one of the greatest talkers of all time, in my opinion. And that's why he's my number 9. Scooter?
Ha. This is a very tough. Oh man, because I know who I want at my top, but I'm trying to figure out who should be at the bottom. Okay, you know what? Let's go really old school. Number 9 for me, Gary Hart.
Damn. Okay.
World class, Florida. What could have been for Gary Hart had he not, been taken. But he always represented wrestlers out of the Orient. But they always came up against opponents like Dusty Rhodes, like Lex Luger, Sting, and he gave guidance to some of the greatest Japanese wrestlers: the Great Muta, Great Kabuki, Kendo Nagasaki, and you don't find a manager or even a talker like Gary Hart anymore. So Gary Hart, number 9.
Kaliko.
Man. Uh, it's talkers. Nine number 9. I put them. Dang, this is tough. Talkers. Jake Roberts would be my number 9. I think the way he would speak was very. He was cold in his talk. Like he made sure, like he wasn't the fastest talker, but when he spoke, there was a coldness to it, kind of like a mini serial killer. Like he wanted you to hear every word. And even though he should have been a champion, but yeah, that dude could talk. If he could sit there and go, "I'm gonna strangle you with my hands, and then I'm gonna throw you a battery at," and you would just be like, "Holy shit, this dude's really gonna do this shit!" Like, it would make you like. They twice. Dead ass. So I mean, that is one. Jake the Snake Roberts.
All right, my number eight, and this is the only time I will be going off of WWE. My number eight is when you think when you think sneakers, you think Nike. When you think cars, you think Cadillacs, and when you think tag team wrestling, you think the Briscoes. Mark and Jay Briscoe. My first ever exposure to Ring of Honor wrestling was a promo from the Briscoe brothers. And whenever Mark and or Jay talked, especially when they were together, it was always interesting. It was always you always listened because there was a lot of yes, there was a lot of nonsense in there, but you knew that there was a threat of danger because they you don't fuck with the Briscoes. And Jay was arguably the best talker in Ring of Honor, if I do say so myself. And yeah, you just you gotta go with the Briscoes when it comes to promos, in my opinion. Scooter?
All right. Oh boy, number 8. Okay, this is. Oh man. See, when you think of the fact that these guys are low on our list doesn't reflect their their ability.
Impact.
Yes,
Yes.
because these are supposed to be some of the greatest voices essentially, and there's there's something about when you can recognize the voice of someone sitting behind the commentary desk, and you know who it is and you know what it's time for. So my number 8, of course, is the essential voice of professional wrestling, Gordon Soley.
Hmm.
Mm.
Uh, I, of course, I had the pleasure of watching Gordon Soley growing up as he was really coming towards the end of his career in WCW. And he might not have been able to exactly keep up with how wrestling was evolving then, but you cannot deny that Gordon Soley should be one of those voices that when you think of greatest analysts in professional wrestling. And not only that, he was very soft spoken. He did not raise his voice. He did not he didn't do anything to enhance his voice. He didn't fake anything about him. He was, in comedy you have the straight man, and you have the guy that plays off the straight man. Gordon Soley was the straight man, and he was the best in the business. My number 8, Gordon Soley.
Kaliko.
Man, this list is tough. Um, I am going to go, and it may seem low right now, um, but The Rock at 8.
Hmm.
Uh,
Okay.
um, The Rock was very entertaining, very talkative, had some of the greatest lines in pro wrestling. I think the only hindrance for him is that his peak, what you could say his peak talking on the mic was probably what, 98 to 02, 03?
No, no three. At the lead, yeah.
Like a 5 year peak. So, and then he left for Hollywood, so we never got to know the what ifs of it all. I mean, he had a good peak, but the longevity is the issue with me
Yeah.
with him.
But he was only
But
there for 2 years though, prior to really getting into it though.
right, and that and you're thinking what, 99?
I think up
I
to
mean,
97.
eh,
96, November 96 is when
join the nation.
but when he joined the Nate, no, it was earlier than it
Oh
was
yeah,
earlier
95.
than, it was 90, it was, yeah, not somewhere in 97. Uh, it was September, September 97. Yeah. Yep, yeah, it's September or October, because he was in the Intercontinental title tournament in October of 97, because he wrestled Ahmed Johnson in that tournament. So, yeah. So,
Any closing statements about The Rock, or are we going to number 7, Felipe?
I think he speaks for himself. But like I said, he had a good run. I just think it wasn't. It should have been longer.
Okay.
I think that's what kills the impact of him. Like he had a great impact. I just wish he had a longer run than his 5 years.
All right. That brings me to my number 7. And I can't really mention one without the other. So they kind of go hand in hand, and that is Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon. Before there was Jim Ross and, the King, there was Bobby the Brain and Gorilla, and their time together is, you could listen to them banter for hours. It's just great shit when they were together, and obviously Bobby Heenan, one of the best managers of all time. Gorilla, one of the biggest wrestlers prior, and for them to have such a great career outside of that as commentators, as co-hosts, for primetime wrestling. Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me. So, Bobby the Brain Heenan, Gorilla Monsoon, my number 7. Skipper?
and, it's funny because there's a lot of Mandela effect in there, because people don't realize that Gorilla and Bobby weren't together as commentators for that long, because it was either Gorilla and Jesse the Body, or it was Vince and Jesse the Body. So it's, when you could do so much with such little time, that means something. All right, my number 7. I I wanted I want him I wanted to put him higher up. I really did. Uh, but the fact that there were a lot of times that he kind of went off the rails a little bit. And there's probably two people you can think of that fit that description. But my number 7 is the Macho Man Randy Savage. Uh, he, that gruff voice. Let me tell you. Remember Hulk Hogan? You and me, WrestleMania. If you look at Liz, I swear to God, I'm gonna rip off your legs and I'm gonna shove them where the sun don't shine. That like that voice that would cause so many sore throats in schoolyards all across the U.S. Who didn't want to speak like Randy Savage, and who didn't think that Randy Savage was going to crash their high school graduation? I mean, I know I did.
Right. A pop in circumstance.
Yeah, I
Oh yeah.
but I think of one promo with Savage, and believe it or not, it's from WCW, and it's after he sees the video of Liz pleading for him to save her from Eric Bischoff, and he talks about, something, Hogan, life is fragile, and he walks off like he's ready to just bust down doors and just kill for Liz, even though they couldn't stand each other outside of the ring. But my number 7, Macho Man and Savage.
All I have to say to that is, be a man, Hulk.
Come on, dude. No.
Hey, that rap album, low key.
Yeah.
Kalika.
Oh man, my number 7. He's the same as The Rock. I mean, he had a good run. Injuries cut it short, but he had a little bit longer than The Rock because he was part of a tag team that was some good talkers, and that is Stone Cold Steve Austin. Um, when he talked, it was raw. When he talked, it felt like one of the guys at work. When he voiced his frustration, you could feel it, you could sense it. It was like, and and James, you were like 2 months at the time, but when he was going against Vince and the way he was talking to Vince, I think every person in America who was watching wrestling at that time were channeling their frustrations with their boss, with Stone Cold. They were literally living vicariously through Stone Cold with how he's talked to his boss or to anyone for that matter. I think that dynamic was a lot more. I think that put America together as far as like the working class because everyone had that boss that they hated and they wish they could just talk to them the way Stone Cold did to Vince. And it was just the right the right person at the right time, and it just took off. To me, he was always just that straight shooter, country bumpkin, southern guy, and he had no bones about it. He wasn't the most fluent with the words, but when he said his words, you knew exactly what the fuck he meant. So, yeah, Stone Cold Steve Austin, number 7.
My number 6 is the cult of personality, CM Punk. Um, there are very few wrestlers that when they open up their mouth, you listen and you listen to every word that they say. I would put honestly those few wrestlers where you would prefer to hear them talk than actually wrestle. um, and CM Punk is just one of those guys, and I think it just plays to the unpredictability of what he is going to say. Because nobody really knows what he's going to say. Oftentimes it feels like he doesn't know what he's going to say when he, starts talking on the mic. Arguably one of the most famous promos of all time, the pipe bomb. Everything that came after it. Which there was a couple more pipe bombs if you look for them on Raw. Uh, whether it was, his time in AEW, because he cut some banger promos there as well. Some of them didn't age as well today, considering where he is now. But yeah, CM Punk is one of the best talkers, and that's why he is my number six. All right, Squirtle.
Oh, oh man. Okay, we're getting high up there. So number six. It goes back to uh, what you said, James, about how sometimes you would rather hear someone talk than see them wrestle. And uh, this is, number six is unfortunately a man who, by all means, had success but never reached the pinnacle of the mountain. And my number six is Roddy Piper. My God, you put a microphone in his hand and you just tell him go, and the man could shit gold with a microphone in his hand. He could do even more if he was a heel. I mean, who doesn't remember Snuka and the Coconuts? I mean, yes, that's not anything to do with talking, but how he gave the business to nearly everyone.
Well, he did a lot of talking in that segment.
Yes, he did so much. And when you think of wrestler talk shows, you always think of Piper's Pit. You'll never forget Piper's Pit. WrestleMania 5, Morton Downey Jr. Everybody thought Piper was done with the WWF. After WrestleMania 3, no, he comes back, boom. And it delivers a powerful anti-smoking message at the same time. Uh, make no mistake, there were times when Piper really went nuts with his promos. The less said about WrestleMania 6, the better. But WrestleMania 8, when he's with Bret Hart, and he's talking about how when he was younger and he would be at Bret's house because the rumor at the time is that Bret and Piper were cousins. That somehow they were actually familial cousins. And the thing is, Piper is going about, and I remember this is hard, that she'd slap that peanut butter and jelly on this, and he's making no sense whatsoever, but we're hanging on every word, because Bret Hart doesn't know how to react to this because Brett unfortunately was never a great talker,
No.
and Piper could Piper could carry anybody in an interview. It's one thing to carry somebody in a match. It's another thing to carry somebody in a promo. And Piper could do that in spades. So much to the point I'm surprised there isn't an award named for him for the best talker of the year. Roddy Piper, my number 6.
Kaliko. Kaliko?
Man, it's getting there. My number 6 is the same as yours, CM Punk, and it's crazy we're thinking this, but to me, CM Punk, he has this believability with him. Uh, the straight edge society stuff was just gold. The the fact that he was straight edge and used it as a ploy to make everyone seem less than was just gold. His airing of grievances, as you will, against the whole industry was gold. I think the pipe bomb literally changed the landscape of wrestling and made it popular at a time where it started the resurgence of wrestling, if you will, because it seemed so real that it just felt so real. That say what you will, he can talk his ass off, and he can make you feel it. He made you feel it when he just recently fucking tore his goddamn tricep off. You actually wanted to root for the guy. He made you feel it when he first came back from AEW. Fun fact: I was in Vegas for SummerSlam the night before when Punk was rumored to come back. I'm eating at a steak restaurant with my wife, and I put my phone out and literally sat there and listened to the CM Punk promo in front, in front of my wife at this steak restaurant. Like, hold on, I gotta hear what he gotta say, right? Like,
And it was a good
so,
marriage until then.
so that tells you like how much when he's ready to speak, it's like you're just so ready to listen. So my number 6 is CM Punk.
Right. Somebody that relates to the common man.
Yeah. Oh, he can relate. Yeah.
Alright. That brings me to my number 5. The great one. The Rock. There are few that could joust with him on a microphone. Um, there are so many promos, taglines, catchphrases. It's just insane. SmackDown is literally named after, one of his catchphrases. Um, every time The Rock talked, it was fun, it was interesting. Um, you listened to what he had to say because he knew how to verbally annihilate people. In one promo, he destroyed Billy Gunn's whole whole push, and then God came down to Billy, and he said, "God, and he said, God,
My name's
John,
Billy.
my name's Billy. It doesn't matter what your name
The
is."
name is, oh my god.
And then Billy went into the good night, and we never heard from him again. Um, So things like that, things like Booker T is a punk ass sucker, um, um, Shane McMahon, Silver Spoon, motherfucker. just, just these things that anybody else, maybe anybody else couldn't have done it as well as he did. But he knew it wasn't just how what he said; it's how he delivered it and the impact it made, which makes him one of the best talkers of all time. And my number five, Scoodle.
Okay. I pride myself on being just a little bit different than everybody. I like going against the grain when it comes to something like this. I like to give people who don't normally get the flowers they deserve. So my number five. My number five. Terry Funk. A man who is not only remembered for the amount of blood he shed, but for the post match interviews he would give. And of course, they now live on in infamy because so many pro wrestlers who stream today use his forever promo as either a subscription alert or an end to the stream that sends them off to raid another channel. And I bring up Colt Cabana who uses it. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm gonna send you off, but I'm sorry, you're not, you can't leave. You're stuck here forever. And then it goes into Terry Funk going, forever, 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 and it's him talking about. I believe that was uh, after a championship match with Ric Flair, and he won it. Uh, and of course, his feud with Jerry Lawler, and I have to mention this line. Uh, Talking about Jerry Lawler, he looks like Bob Barker on a bottle of Ensure. Like, the Funker, a man who said he would literally die in the ring before retiring, before ever giving it up. And we every wrestling fan still misses him dearly. My number five, Terry Funk.
Kalika?
Whew, man. Number five. This is where it gets tough, man. My number five, Rowdy Piper. Rowdy had this, and everything for Scooter said, it was kind of archaic. It was like organized chaos with the way he talked, because he would be all over the place, but somehow still made sense. Um, and his voice, it was just so high pitched, low pitch, high pitched, low pitch. He was just like very in command of his voice, and to me, it it's just artwork and form when he talked. And he's the reason that every person had a talk show. The the Jericho one, the KO show, Miz TV, uh, hell, the barbershop,
Yeah.
the Heartbreak Hotel. You could name any segment that they've had with interviews, and he was the genesis. To me, he's up there, number 5, Roddy Piper. He's the reason why talking has a segment in wrestling. Period. Because most of the time back then they would just do interviews and let him cut a promo with the announcer, but they never really had that wrestler to wrestler interaction like that until it was Piper. So he is my number 5.
That brings me to my number 4. Y2J Chris Jericho. Um, Allegations notwithstanding, Chris Jericho was one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. When it came to when he turned in 2008, he was the one of the first guys I decided whether he's a heel or not, I'm going to cheer for him. Um, if you go back to '96, some really classic gems in WCW. Who could ever forget number 4, armbar, number 4, number 5,
Arm
armbar, oh, the
arm drag.
wrist lock. Um, so yeah, from going from that and um, you know, antagonizing Goldberg, for getting the way to go to the ring, into going to WWE, that first promo against The Rock, incredible. To some, interesting, incredible interviews at that time, to re-evolve into a more serious character in 2008 and say I'm the best in the world at what I do, and you are all parasites, to a list of wrestlers. Because none of it really makes sense that these are all promos from the same guy, and yet you always believed what he was telling you. It always worked, and to have so many different promos from different eras in different forms that he was, and have them all resonate. Yeah, it's quite extraordinary and incredible, and that's why Chris Jericho is my number 4. All right, Scooter.
Oh man, we are really getting into the meat and potatoes of this, and my number 4. I think I have to put. I have to make number 4 a tie because both were similar in how they talked, in what they said, and what they looked like. So number 4 is a tie between superstar Billy Graham and Hulk Hogan. And Hogan himself has said he drew inspiration from his first promos from Graham to the point where Graham was pissed about it. It's like, ah, I could rip the chrome off a Cadillac, Jack. Just those infamous lines. Graham would do it, but then Hogan would take it up to another level. And the thing is, Hogan always thanked Billy Graham. Hogan never had a problem with Billy Graham. Billy Graham had a problem with Hogan. Because, Billy Graham was the one who the WWF was originally supposed to be built around. And then he got injured. They thought he was out. Hogan steps in, and then Graham comes back. And, I really thought a Hulk Hogan, Billy Graham, just a face-off, a promo, and then even leading to a WrestleMania match. Could you imagine if the WWF had the guts to turn Billy Graham heel? How much of that would have an effect on Hogan in '96? That's how tied closely Hogan and Graham are for their words. You remember Hogan because it's to say the prayers, take your vitamins, and the 24-inch pythons. What you gonna do? Graham was the same way, just for an earlier generation, and they both deserve to be on a pedestal, and they really deserve to be next to each other, and they both need to really be thanking each other. So number 4, the tie between Billy Graham and Hulk Hogan.
Here we go.
Man, my number 4 is the Macho Man, Randy Savage. Man, that dude. When he talked, you just would listen. I think that dude has the most YouTube videos of Macho Man on coke. Cup of coffee in the big time. Tea, toast, and dinner. Just a cup of coffee in the big time. And oh man, it was just awesome. And the cream of the crop. I am the cream of the crop, and the crop shall rise. Yeah, man, that dude just had it all, man. I think it was just awesome. The one that stuck out to me the most from him though was WrestleMania 5 when he was just all by myself. No pukesters to the right, no pukesters to the left, all by myself. And it was a relatable promo if you had someone where you were the champ and you had the girl and you just see this dude always with the girl, you got jealousy in your eyes, man. Oh, and he's like, I was styling out there like a stallion, but guess who shows up for no reason at all? That promo was just glitter and gold for him, and he should have won WrestleMania 5, to be quite honest. But that's all, just off that promo alone. Because it was just coming from a place where people booed him, but 6-year-old me booed him at that time, but older me was like, shit, I see your point now, bro. Like, that's how impactful Macho Man is. Everyone wanted to sound like him, like Scooter said. Um, he's got the greatest theme music ever, literally graduation music. So yeah, the Macho Man, man, that dude. And he dropped the rap album. Come on, man. Like, that
Yeah.
tells you everything you
I
need to
mean,
know.
you kind of have to count, you know, the tower of power too sweet to be sour, funky like a monkey. Woo! Yeah.
Oh, yeah, man. That, yep.
WrestleMania
I
was
mean,
oh man.
he was the most imitated in movies, too. I remember Liar, Liar when Jim Carrey was like, oh, we go to Montreal's gonna go see Macho Man Savage in the steel cage. Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, and that was like 20 years down the line when Liar Liar came out, like 98. So I'm just telling you, like that's how much of an effect he had on people, man. Like, I think he was one of the only WWF champions to be on Arsenio Hall show.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that tells you like how much of, as far as like the black community, like, oh shit, this dude's on Arsenio Hall. Like,
I mean,
he's invited to a barbecue or two.
hell,
So
Mr. Rogers was on Arsenio Hall.
you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, yeah, I'd take him to a couple barbecues here and there.
Alright,
But yeah, Macho Man number 4.
so that brings us to, we'll get into the nitty gritty, we'll get into the top three. And my number three is the Hot Rod Roddy Piper. If you told Roddy Piper to talk for an entire 24 hours, he would find a way to talk for 26 hours. And he would have it make sense. He would have you hooked on every word, and you would listen to him for 26 hours straight because he was that entertaining. His whole Hall of Fame speech was a promo. Like Scooter said, he was the type of guy. He had a non-smoking message um in his promos. He had the infamous coconut spot, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, he wrestled the Invisible Man. That's such a great thing." Roddy Piper interviewed himself. And who is interviewing themselves and can make it entertaining as much as Roddy Piper did? And it always accumulated to the match. Now, sometimes the match didn't live up to the expectations. We could believe that, but you wanted to see the match, and WrestleMania and was based off of people wanting to see Roddy Piper get his ass kicked because his mouth was so big. He was a larger than life personality without being as big as a Hulk Hogan, an Andre the Giant, Macho Man. So yeah, he was a David in a world of Goliaths, and he made himself look like a Goliath from how well he talked, and that's why he's my number three. Scooter.
Okay. The meat and potatoes here. It's it's a really great thing when a wrestler can find their voice and just just build a career from that. It takes even more when you're someone from Hollywood who most people think you're pretending to play wrestler when you actually care about the business probably more than anybody knew at the time. And if you haven't guessed it by now, number 3 for me is the late great Andy Kaufman. Kaufman was unorthodox. He, by some standards, he wasn't even a wrestler. He was pure Hollywood, and the fact that he hated being on Taxi. He hated being on TV like that. He didn't do many movies, uh, but the one thing everybody else remembers Andy Kaufman for is Jerry Lawler, the incident on David Letterman, and then before that, of course, it was Jerry Lawler pile driving Andy Kaufman, and a lot of people forget that Jimmy Hart was involved in that too.
Yes.
You know, Andy Kaufman took a lot of risks with his comedic career to do what he, loved as a child, and he loved performing, and he loved wrestling, and he loved the idea of kayfabe. Some may even consider Andy Kaufman one of the one of the keepers of kayfabe, because he would stay in it no matter what. On the Merv Griffin show, when he wrestled women, doing and got them to hate him so much, he got banned from being on Saturday Night Live. Only he, Steven Seagal, and Damon Wayans are banned from Saturday Night Live. Some would see that as a fault. For Andy Kaufman, that's a badge of honor, and the fact that he comes from an area where I grew up. He's Long Island, born and bred, Jewish, and just this skinny little Hollywood actor who, I guarantee you, if there was no Andy Kaufman, there would be no Rock. There would be, there would be no Rock in film. There would be no Miz in film. There would be no Roddy Piper in film. Because before wrestlers really transitioned into being actors, it was Andy Kaufman who transitioned from being an actor into a wrestler, even though he didn't have matches in the classical sense, but had such an impact that he's in the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame and the WWE Hall of Fame. Number 3, for me, Andy Kaufman.
Kaliko. Kaliko?
He's thinking.
Oh no, I'm not sleeping, but
I was
I was literally talking, and I'm like, damn, yeah, Andy Kaufman is an unsung hero wrestler, and people just don't know how important he is. I do because I'm from the South. I've
yeah.
seen it. I've seen the tapes. I can tell you right now, this is how crazy it was for Andy Kaufman that Jim Carrey embraced that role so much that when they filmed Man on the Moon, he got his jaw dislocated because Jerry Lawler literally thought he was. That's how crazy or how big of a deal he is. Um, my number three, everyone has a tie, and I guess this is going to be my first tie, and it's because it's the yin and the yang. Yeah, you couldn't have one without the other, and it's country boy and city boy. And if you were down here in the South, there was no bigger two people that were able to talk so much shit to each other than Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes. This was a one-on-one in promo of classism, working classes versus upper class, upper echelon, and they played it so perfectly. Ric Flair could be up here on his own. Don't get me wrong, because that dude was like the flossy guy. He made hood dudes want to be Rick. Hood dudes used to want to be Ric Flair. But you also needed someone to juxtapose that against, and that was Dusty and Rhodes. Their back and forth, their complete banter in the South was just hot fire to the point where people in the crowd were literally trying to go after Ric Flair after shows. Like that's how big of a talker, that's how big words were in the wrestling business in the South. Like to me, those two are forever linked because Hard Times was cut because of Ric Flair. You see what I'm saying? So to me, those two will forever be linked in the Southern sense because, especially when it was like the NWA, WWE wasn't really. They were working on at that time on the entertainment part, but Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes had the relatability to the point where the haves and the have-nots, even the people who were rich wanted to see Ric Flair get his ass kicked. But Ric Flair used to have them lines, man, and I'm having a hard time holding these alligators down. Like like world class championship wrestling, man. He used to go out there and all the girls, Slick Rick, even face or heel, he had them, and the same with Dusty. But to me, they're forever linked because they're the people who could talk people into the building, and that was a big thing in the South. So number three, Ric Flair, Dusty.
All right. Well, that brings us to my number two, which may be controversial or a shock to some people, but my number two is Tetsuya Naito.
What?
Yeah,
Who?
for a guy
English?
that doesn't even speak English, he doesn't mince words. There's very few wrestlers where their words dictate their actions. Whatever he says, he actually does, and it translates to what he does in the ring. And everything he says is very believable for what he believes in and what he's trying to present. Nothing that he says is wasted. He doesn't say words just to say words. They mean something. There's Even if he says something, there's a meaning behind the meaning. And there's very few wrestlers that present that speak English, let alone in Japanese. And if you could read subtitles and be hooked on every single word, then you have something there. and he's one of the most, not even special Japanese wrestlers, but one of the most special wrestlers of all time, especially when it comes to on the mic, and why he's my number two. All right, Scooter.
Oh boy. Um, you know, when we get to one, I'm hoping we can do some honorable mentions. Number two and my number one are interchangeable, I think, based on who you ask. My number two pick, my number two talker, is the man with the biggest racket in town, Jim Cornette.
Motherfucker!
Now, I will be the first to admit, I had no idea who Jim Cornette was until he showed up on Raw with the Heavenly Bodies. And then when he showed up on Raw, and he immediately hugged Bobby the Brain Heenan. A lot of people forget that because those were like Heenan's last few episodes of Raw. But from that point on, Cornette was the voice for many wrestlers who could not do their own promo. And he was also one who wasn't afraid to get, to be part of the action himself. Who could forget Night of the Skywalkers and that scaffold match? But Jim Cornette not only can talk in kayfabe, but he has people listen outside of kayfabe, which is something that is very hard to do in today's day and age in the professional wrestling business. Cornette really does tell it like it is. And that's why he's considered one of the, I think, profound authorities on pro wrestling. If anybody has a claim to be at the top, to be on the Mount Rushmore of voices in professional wrestling, it is James E. Cornette. And it will, when the great thing about a once in a lifetime talker is when you know that when everybody that comes after him pales in comparison until somehow there might be someone else just as good. But for now, my number two, Jim Cornette.
Kaliko?
Man, Jim Cornette. I remember back in USWA days, though. So, see, a lot of these people I've seen in the South, 5-year-old me was like, yo! So, I can kind of understand. But my number two is one, Bobby the Brain Heenan. When you think in his term of longevity from 1983 to right around 99, this dude has been the voice and has voiced over some of the biggest moments in wrestling. I mean, he was the reason he talked Andre the Giant into getting a title shot at WrestleMania 3. He was there when Shawn Michaels turned on Marty Jannetty and quipped that line. Oh, look at that coward, Marty Jannetty, jumping out the window. But that guy was just so good. He had the Heenan family. He managed Rick Rude. He managed Trey. He managed the Brainbusters. He was there for the NWO call. I called it. I knew that traitor. I mean, he was there for some of the biggest moments in professional wrestling. It had great voice projection, great believability. He had such great dedication, and I would be remiss if he wasn't number two. This guy, even he said he used to shave and practice saying these lines in the mirrors just so he could see how he says it and the mannerisms in which he says it. And it showed the dedication, man, and you cannot second guess it. He was one of the few people that could be a manager and a commentator and would manage so many people that it just made no sense. So Bobby the Brain Heenan, number two on my list.
All right, and that brings me to my number one. Trust me, it's Jake the Snake Roberts. Um, there was very few people that embody a character as well as Jake did, and kind of transformed it into so much more than it was. To be as sinister and evil and maniacal as Jake was, and in an era of WWE where everybody yelled at the top of their lungs, a lot of high energy, individuals.
Uh,
Jake, uh, what?
no, I'm sorry. You said high energy.
Yeah,
Owen Hart and Coco Beware.
oh God,
Yeah,
high
high
energy.
energy. Yeah, you kind of set that one up.
Jake, Jake brought it down. He made you come in. He made you listen. And you didn't want to get too close because you weren't exactly sure if he would come out and bite. And when we all love, Mean Gene Okerlund, obviously, he could get excited during some of the promos. The promo with Jake was that WrestleMania 7 with against $1 Million Man.
6.
6, thank you. Even Mean Gene Okerlund was quiet, captivated by the words that Jake the Snake was saying. And for every to hang on every word uh, on like with Jake the Snake, it's it's just an incredible because like I said, everybody yelled in that time. And to bring it down, slow it down, it made him even more interesting and unique. Not to mention that his promo in '96 led to one of the greatest superstars of all time in Stone Cold Steve Austin. Um, so his contributions to pro wrestling are endless, boundless, and it's why he's number one for me. Because when you hear listen to somebody talk and you believe every word that they're saying, it don't get much better than that. Jake the Snake, my number one. Scooter?
I want to give a couple of honorable mentions. Uh, First of all, Raven. Uh,
Oh yeah.
you know, and of course, I'm referring to his ECW, WCW stuff. Uh, he developed it in ECW, and in WCW, it caught on. Did it get him the results he wanted? Not really. But if you were a WCW fan, you knew, quote the Raven, nevermore. Uh, who, um, Arn Anderson on his own. Absolutely. Uh, uh, there's one more honorable mention. Um, and yeah, and you know what? I'm gonna give an honorable mention to sometimes the best talkers are the ones who barely say anything at all. So I will give an honorable mention to the Undertaker. My number one, and I'm not. I wouldn't be. I'm kind of surprised nobody has said this. It honestly, it makes me wonder. But this is another man who started out in wrestling before growing in to something more, something bigger, and he ended up growing something bigger than himself, something that would put him into the annals of professional wrestling history. And the best part about it is that he's still doing it to this very day. Number one for me. There's no question. Paul Heyman. The man could take a mic, speak into it, and he could be friggin' Midas and turn everybody to gold. That's how good Heyman is. Heyman, because he was the manager first, then he was the promoter. He got both sides of the business, a legitimate view of both sides of the business. He knew what it was like to succeed. He knew what it was like to fail. And that came through in every promo Heyman did in ECW. And Heyman wasn't doing promos against people. Heyman was doing promos just to promote. And that's a keystone for somebody who's a great talker. When they're just doing promos and you can hang on their every word. And then, Paulie Dangerously, the big, huge friggin' cell phone, and then, 97, while the Titantron was getting built, and the Raw in the WWE ECW crossover, in the Manhattan Center, and Heyman talking about, there's a lot of stuff from the those episodes of Monday Night Raw, where if you go back and listen to it, you're going to be surprised how much they got away with back then. And then Heyman, of course, in the late stages of ECW, uh, WWE's funding them, even though nobody, at least casual fans, don't actually know. Um, and and then Heyman come shows up, and he's now sitting next to Jim Ross at the commentator table. This was before the alliance, and after Jerry Lawler had a falling out and got asked for his release, and then the alliance happened, and then Brock Lesnar happened. Heyman became the poster boy for superstars. If you wanted them, if you wanted people to pay attention to them, you put them with Paul Heyman. And Heyman, again, and there's nobody else that can get away with what Paul Heyman says in his promos. And there will never be anybody else who can get away with what Paul Heyman says. Paul Heyman knows the right strings to pluck on every single fan. And that is the true mark of what a great talker is. Number one, for me, and you can thank Uncle Moisha, Paul Heyman.
All right. And Kaliko.
Man, you know what? Yeah, he's right. He is right. But we both are on the same wavelength because Paul Heyman is my number one.
Yep.
That guy managed factions. He's managed champions. He even he made Ryback somewhat relevant. Do you know how much that takes? But this guy had everybody. He's managed the Austins. He's managed the Big Shows. He's managed RVD. He's managed Angle. Managed Punk. Managed Reigns. Managed Lesnar. He's managed them all. He's literally the GOAT. He's literally the talker among talkers. He can speak in a way to where it is basically, is it true or is it not? It's up to you to decide. It is one Paul Heyman. Some of the promos that stick out to me with him was when he let Vince have it during that invasion angle.
Yes.
You could see his soul coming out of his body when he cut that promo. Another great promo that I recall to me was important, but kind of threw
Come on, I know
things
what you. Oh, I know
in the
what you're saying.
stratosphere.
Come on.
To me, when he could talk and be serious and funny at the same time, it's nuts. Post WrestleMania 30, Brock Lesnar comes out right after everyone is pissed at him for beating the streak. He somehow managed to turn Brock Lesnar from being a shitty individual for breaking the streak to where when he left, he was such a god that he went on this crazy streak that where no one could touch him. It's just a thing of beauty when he spoke. And you have to be when he talks and you're there live. It's something to behold. I still just remember Superdome, Superdome Hogan. Yeah, that dude had it all, man, and he's just the greatest. He's managed Rick Rude. He's managed. You could just the list of champions that he has managed goes on and on. The list of wrestlers that he has managed has gone on and on. I mean, the Dudleys. He had the Brainbusters for a hot second. He had me, Mark Galloway, aka The Undertaker, stunning Steve Austin, Taz, Sabu, Snuka, Anderson. The Dangerous Alliance was just something to take a hold of. And the reason he's number one because he is still doing it to this day, which tells you how good he is. It's hard. It's hard to be able to say something and have people hooked onto your words for damn near 30 years, roughly 30 years. And that dude has been at the top of his game since day one. And it's him, Paul Lee Dangerously, aka Paul Heyman, number one.
And I just wanted the two best lines from Paul Heyman's repertoire. Hide your wives, it's Edge. And of course the second one is also about Edge. The only reason you're champion is because Triple H doesn't want to work Tuesdays.
That was
Oh
Jay Lethal,
yes,
not Edge.
Uh,
one, one
oh
night stand.
Yeah.
yeah,
One night stand. He let him have it, man.
Oh yeah. Because he was smoking a joint with RVD in the back.
while they were all tag teaming Beulah.
You stop it. Oh, I did have Paul Heyman on my list. He was 7, but I opted for Gorilla and Bobby. But I mean, to pick 10 people, honestly,
It's hard
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
because I didn't even mention Jericho, Taker,
uh,
Raven. Raven was so good. Dudes was beating him up
yeah.
in the middle of his promos. Like that's kind of crazy. But
when
like
when you can
Lawler could talk.
yes,
Lawler was a talker.
Oh yeah.
Um, dude, handsome Jimmy Valiant, the
uh,
Boogie Woogie Man.
mm,
You could go on and on, man.
I wanted to say Freddie Blassie.
Oh yeah.
Freddie Blassie, Lou Albano.
Yes. Hell, I would even say Iron Sheik.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Uh,
she.
to a certain degree. Um,
I almost
I
kind of wanted to put Sensational Sherry.
I thought about
ooh
it.
ooh
I thought
Sherry
about it too.
Sherry was a great like valet. She was a terrible talker. I
But it
want
was just funny, Sapphire. I'm going to
I
be on you like black on that phone.
I I watched. Oddly enough, I watched the '89 Rumble, uh, like a couple of weeks back, and it's one of the few Rumble. It's one of the few events in the '80s, aside from Survivor Series, that had a not just a women's match, but a women's championship match. And it was between Rockin' Robin, who, if you don't know, is the
Rockin'
sister
Robin.
of Jake the Snake Roberts,
Yep.
against Judy Martin. And, you know, weirdly enough, Judy Martin gets a jobber's entrance, but Sherry is already in the ring for some odd reason. Rocket Robin comes in, with the WWF Ladies Championship, which I think might be the smallest belt in history. But and Sherry decides, oh, yeah, I don't care if you win. I don't care if you win. I'm gonna challenge the winner for the ladies champion. And Sherry goes to commentary, and uh, and Rocket Robin and Judy Martin, they have the worst match I think I've ever seen. I mean, it was so bad. I think it might have given me COVID. Um, like it was bad, and it was bad by modern standards. It was bad by 80s standards.
Damn.
There's a reason the women's championship faded out in that time, and oh man, but Sherry was not not the best talker. It depends on who she was with. Her best work was with Savage and with Harlem Heat.
Harlem Heat. Yep.
Yep. I'm surprised that nobody said Road Dog.
Road Dogg was a good talker to the ring, but that's different than a promo.
Road Dogg
True.
was a catchphrase, really.
Yeah, he was a catchphrase.
Very true. Alright. Um, this is the first top 10, hopefully, of many more to come. Um, Thank you for listening. If you like what we're doing, please like, subscribe, comment, both on YouTube and Castbox. This was sponsored by Rogue Energy and Player One Coffee. Join us tomorrow as we interview Justin, Pac-Man, Xavier, and then on Wednesday, Ken Warren. Follow the show at Wrestling with E, both on X, Thread, and Instagram for information on who we're interviewing, when we're interviewing them, links to those interviews, and so much more. Follow me personally at JamesJ993. And where can we find Kalika?
I am Kaliko on X. Yo. I am Kaliko on X. Yo. Look at that. Making it rhyme.
And where can we find Scooter?
As always, you can find me on X at Scooter Dust, and I can now say season 2 of my Desert Dragons campaign, uh, Legends of Arcadia, episode Althea, is currently airing right now on Twitch, twitch.tv/Smoking Dragons. Also, do not forget about the X contest, my profile picture at Scooter Dust. If you can correctly guess what it is, you win a free year subscription to Peacock.
For Kaliko Yachts and Scooter Dust, I am James J, and this has been Wrestling with Entertainment.
Superdome, Hogan, not Silverdome.
Hey, folks, this is the Colossal Mike Law, and you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment. Enjoy the show. Support these guys. We appreciate it very much. We'll see you at ringside.